Hey guys, this is Kevin over at JazTime.com. JazTime.com is an online store that buys, sells, trades authentic luxury watches. We make these videos so that our customers can easily choose the best watch for themselves in the comfort of their own home. We offer the lowest prices anywhere online, and if you'd like to know the price, simply click on the links in the description below. If you enjoy our videos, we would greatly appreciate if you would support JazTime once in a while by buying a watch. Alright, so let's go ahead and move on to the review now. Today we'll be doing a comparison between two Rolex watches. These are both professional divers watches. On the left we have the base model Submariner, the 116610, versus the newly updated Rolex Deepsea, the 126660. We'll be going over the dial, bezel, case, crown, bracelet, clasp, and we'll talk about the movements towards the end of the video. Alright, so jumping right in, we can see dial is pretty much the same in terms of the style. It's just the maxi dial, which is the circular hour markers fashioned in 18 karat white gold with index 6 and 9 and triangular 12 at the 12 o'clock position. We have the date window at the 3 o'clock position. Of course, for the Submariner, we have the Cyclops lens on top of that sapphire crystal that protrudes a little bit above it for magnification, easier viewing of that date. For the Deepsea, we don't have that Cyclops lens, mainly because for the Deepsea, the size of the crystal for the Deepsea is a 5.5 millimeter thick crystal, which sort of adds that little magnification because of the thickness of the crystal. So still very easy to read the date at the 3 o'clock position as well. Of course, we have the Rolex name in the center with the Rolex crown logo, the Submariner name underneath at the 6 o'clock position, the Deepsea name at the 12 o'clock position with the Sea Dweller name underneath that at the 6 o'clock. We have the water resistance listed, which is 300 meters or 1,000 feet for the Submariner, or the Deepsea, which is 12,800 feet or 3,900 meters. So almost 13 times the water resistance on the Deepsea compared to the Submariner. Notice that we also have the original gas escape valve with the ring lock system around the outer edge of the dial, and that's important, as I'll show you later on in the side of the case. But besides that, dial styles are pretty much the same. One little tiny difference is that at the 6 o'clock position, you'll see the Swiss made underneath the 6 o'clock position. In this newly updated Deepsea, they actually added this little Rolex crown logo in between that Swiss made. And you can see the Submariner does not have that. The other update was that it brings the minute hand and the seconds hand in line with the Submariner, and you can see that the hands are extended by 1 millimeter that match the outer indices. So there's no spacing between the indices and the second and minute hand. But that's pretty much it for the dial. There are different dial colors for these watches, only one other option for each. For the Submariner, you can get what's called the Hulk, and that will have a green bezel and a green dial. And for the Deepsea, there's a special edition called the James Cameron edition, where it has a nice blue to black gradient with the Sea Dweller name in green, and that's to commemorate the Deepsea challenge. And you can see the standalone review for that on our YouTube channel. Moving on to the bezel now. Pretty much the same style bezel. It's a unidirectional, rotatable, 60-minute graduated scratch-resistant Cerachrome, which is Rolex's fancy way of saying a ceramic bezel. It has a nice shine to it, very scratch-resistant, and it has a platinum dusted for the indices and Arabic numerals. The only major difference between the two bezel is that the Deepsea has additional indices from the starting peridot all the way around, whereas the Submariner, you can see the starting peridot all the way around, and then it only goes up to the 15-minute mark, whereas the Deepsea goes all the way around with the indices. Of course, the bezel serves the same functions, and that's to track elapsed time, such as if you were a diver and you had a specific amount of oxygen you wanted to track in terms of the time of how much oxygen you would have left. So let's say you fill up a tank and you know you would have about 10 minutes or so of oxygen for diving. You would just simply move the peridot as so to that the minute hand, and you can track that all the way to the 10 minutes, and so on and so forth, the 15, 20, 25, 30. Okay, And of course, it being unidirectional is just a safety precaution, just in case that you accidentally bump the bezel and you shift it over. You don't want it to give you a false reading. Otherwise, if you're just using it for everyday activities, you can use it for, you know, tracking how fast you run a mile or even how long a business meeting is taking. We're going to go ahead and move on to the case now. So the case sizing is different. We have a 40 millimeter case for the Submariner. So from my index finger to my thumb here, that's 40 millimeters in diameter. Whereas the Deepsea is 44 millimeters in diameter, so 4 millimeters, 4 millimeters larger. But the side profile is where it really has a large difference. So from the side profile, there it is. You can see it almost looks like there's two Submariners stacked on top of each other to make that Deepsea. You can see that thickness. The Deepsea thickness is 17.7 millimeters thick, and I believe the Submariner is about 14 millimeter, not 14, but around 14 millimeters thick. Okay, you can see very nicely high polished, and you can see I mentioned I was going to let you know about the side casing. There's this little portion that has a little circular indentation, and that's the actual use for the original escape valve, the ring lock system. Basically what happens is, as you go into deep sea diving, you have to, when you come back up from the deep sea diving, you have to go through a depressurization chamber, which has a mixture of gases in there, like helium, one of them being helium. And the helium is small enough to actually go into the watch itself, and it will be a built-up of pressure that will actually pop the crystal off the watch if there's too much pressure. Well, the ring that the helium escape valve will actually trigger under a certain amount of pressure and release that helium on its own, protecting the watch. So that's one of the features on the Deepsea that we don't see on the Submariner. And of course, like I said, that was for deep sea diving, and that was indicated by its water resistance, as well as the Deepsea goes almost 13 times deeper in water resistance than the Submariner. For the crown functions, we have basically the same crown functions. I'll just go ahead and show you via the Submariner. So they're both a trip-lock, triple waterproofness system that simply unwind counterclockwise as shown to the setting of the standard position, where you can wind the watch. About 15 to 20 winds is all you need. Pulling the crown out to the next position will allow you to adjust the date instantaneously. And then pulling the crown out to the final position will stop the second hand, as you'll see here. Just waiting for it past the Cyclops. There we are. And you see it stopping the second hand, and that allows for precise time settings, such as to an atomic clock online, can set it down to the exact second. You can also adjust the hands however you like bidirectionally to set the time. Pressing the crown back in will start that second hand once more. And always make sure to screw the crown nice and tight in against the case, as you want to keep the watch water resistance and the crown nice and protected between the crown protectors that both of these watches have. Like I said, the functions of the watches are the same, or the crown functions are the same. So I won't be showing you on the Deepsea as we move on to the Bracelet now. So one thing I did forget to mention about the Deepsea in the newest update is that they've actually made the lugs a little bit thinner. You can actually see the difference between the lugs of the Submariner and the Deepsea. They've actually trimmed a millimeter off of each side of the lug for the Deepsea and added it to the center of the Oyster link bracelet, just to have an overall better look and better tapering from the case to the bracelet. You can see very nice and beautiful now. And that's not present on the Submariner. Submariner's proportions are fine. That's what they've updated only on the Deepsea. So you can see a little bit thicker center link of the Oyster bracelet. Also the thinner of the lugs as well. But besides that, Oyster bracelet is made out of 3-piece links out of Rolex's 904L steel, which is an in-house made steel by Rolex. That has additional shine and corrosion resistance. See, and then as we move on, you can see that similar style clasp, and on the other side of the bracelet, same thing. So as we move on to the clasp now, the clasp is just simply a Rolex's safety folding Oyster clasp, which is opened up by pulling off this little hinge. That's the safety. Pull off the other side as well. And they both open up the folding Oyster, and there we are. Nicely high polished clasp blades with the Rolex name embossed on there. So So there's one thing I would need to mention about the back of the clasp. I'm putting the Deepsea down. I have Submariner currently in my hand. Behind the clasp is actually what's called the glide lock extension link. So pulling at a 45-degree angle allows you to adjust the bracelet for inward or outward about 2mm increments for a total of 20mm increments. You can see the little rivets there that will be able to adjust to, and you just snap that bracelet back in, and that allows for quick adjustment. As I said, this is a diver's watch, so you can adjust it. If a diver puts on a wetsuit, they can adjust for that millimeter increment and be able to have the watch comfortably fit on your wrist. But even for everyday wearers, you can adjust it just very easily. If your wrist swells up for a hot summer day, or retracts in a cold winter morning, then you'll be able to fit the correct fitting for you to make that watch comfortable on your wrist. The Deepsea has a little bit more to it, and the glide lock works a little bit differently. So still, again, at the 45-degree angle to have the bracelet pulled out. So the flip lock is this little flat links here, and that's actually used for, again, the wetsuit extension. So if you have a wetsuit, you can actually pull this out and then it fit in nicely. And if it doesn't fit perfectly, then you can start adjusting it with that glide lock. So a little bit extra feature with that flip lock, but the glide lock works a little bit differently. So as you can see, I can't tug this in outward or push it inward, and that's because on the behind the clasp, you can actually pull the top off to lift the rivets up, and then you'll be able to adjust it however you like. So just same style glide lock, just a little bit different way on using it. Pressing it back down locks that bracelet back in. Okay, so that was the Deepsea. So now let's go ahead and move on to the movements now. So for the movements of these watches, the previous Deepsea model used to run the same movement as a Submariner, but they've actually updated. So I'll talk about the Submariner movement first. So the Submariner movement is a 3135 movement in-house made by Rolex, housed in this beautiful oyster case backing, just nice simple oyster case backing. And the movement for that is a tried and tested movement for over 10 years, 20 years. This is Rolex's trademark movement. They've tested for a very long time. It's a perpetual mechanical self-winding movement that they use in previous models of the Deepsea, previous models of the Sea Dweller, and some of the Datejust as well, and has a precision within Swiss specs of -2 +2 seconds a day, and the functions of the center, hour, minute, and seconds hand will instantaneously changing the date with rapid setting, and stopping the seconds hand as I've shown you with the crown functions. The oscillator is a paramagnetic blue parachrome hairspring, which allows for resistance against magnetism, and it has a power reserve of 48 hours, meaning you can put this down on a Friday evening, pick it back up on a Sunday afternoon, and be keeping time just fine. Whereas the Deepsea, they've actually updated the movement on the Deepsea. That's housed in this Deepsea is a 3235 movement now. As I mentioned, is a 32 is a perpetual mechanical self-winding movement within Swiss specs, but it's within Swiss specs with a even more rigorous testing than the 3135. Originally, the 3135 was tested outside of the watch and put into the watch. Well, Rolex decided to up that that testing for the 3235 movement. So they tested the movement to make sure it's within that Swiss specs of -2 +2 seconds. They tested it outside of the watch, and then they put the movement into the Deepsea and tested it in the watch to make sure it was within that Swiss specs. So even a more rigorous testing to make sure it's within that Swiss specs. Not only that, they've actually updated some other portions of the movement as well. So it has that paramagnetic blue parachrome hairspring, but it's now paired with the chronology escapement. The chronology escapement is a skeletonized escapement wheel that is made out of a nickel phosphorus. The skeletonization of that movement, the skeletonization of that escapement allows for reduced inertia, so keeping more precise time setting. And the nickel phosphorus works with that paramagnetic blue parachrome hairspring to add even more resistance against magnetism, as magnetism is a huge factor when dealing with movements, as it can really skew the precision of a movement. Not only that, because they added that chronology escapement, they updated the power reserve of the watch to a 70-hour power reserve. So meaning you can put this watch on a Friday evening and pick it back up on a Monday afternoon, and it'll be keeping time just fine. One other update they did is they went away from the industry standard shock absorbers, which were the KIF shock absorbers. Now they have their own in-house made shock absorbers called the Paraflex shock absorbers, and they claim to Rolex claims to claims that it absorbs 50% more shocks than the industry standard KIF shock absorbers. So overall, massive updates to the movement, and just overall very great. So now let me actually go ahead and show you these watches on my wrist now. So we'll start off with the Submariner first. So once again, locate that folding oyster, opens up as so, and there we are. So you can see, very beautiful watch. Rolex is just very basic sports piece. The Submariner just absolutely looks gorgeous. That black dial really working with that nice reflective ceramic bezel. You can see the profile is not too high. It's a little bit tight on my wrist, but that's because I didn't fix that glide lock to have the standard wrist size, which is the 7.5 inch bracelet size. So my wrist is about 7 inches, and you can 7-inch wrist. So you can see all the way inwards. It's nice and tight on my wrist. Let me show you the Deepsea now. So Deepsea opens up as so. There we are. So for the Deepsea, the update to the lugs of the case is what I really want to point out. The removal of those 1 millimeters on each side of the case to the bracelet just makes the Deepsea look absolutely gorgeous. It used to have the same style of bracelet as the Submariner. So you can see it's a smaller bracelet so it would look a little bit silly on the older models where you would have a large case and a smaller bracelet, but they fixed that now. That oyster bracelet just looking absolutely gorgeous and in line with that large 44 millimeter case size now. As you can see, it sits very high off the wrist, so it won't fit under suit cuffs, dress cuffs very nicely, but it's more of a bolder watch. Okay, so there's the two together. So if you're interested in this watch or any other watch for the lowest possible price, check out our website at JazTime.com, where the lowest price is guaranteed, and we offer a 1-year warranty. And if you liked the video, please like, comment, subscribe below. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you guys soon.
If you want to find out more about the watch you just saw in the video, you can just click below on Show More to see the full description. Then you can check the link next to model as seen in video. Click on it and you will get to the proper page where you can see all the details. If you're watching on a mobile phone, you have to click on the arrow down on the right hand side below the video to see the full description. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. If you would like to share this video with your friends, you can use the share button below and share it on any platform you like. If you have questions, constructive feedback, want to tell us about some mistakes or misspeaks, just write a comment below. If you want to see more videos like this, you should subscribe to our channel and visit our channel page where you can find all the videos. And if you're interested in a specific watch brand, you can check out our playlists. If you want to check the price for a watch or want to buy one, remember at JazTime.com you always get a steep discount, so you should check the prices with us. If you want to know the price for a specific watch, just go to Google, type in JazTime, plus the brand, model and the details you're interested in, and Google will find the right page for you. Thank you for watching.